Morning, everyone. Welcome back to another Monday, 10 o'clock. We've got a few already this morning. That's good. Cool. Welcome to the guys that are doing the diploma and using this as their study morning. Welcome to another Monday. If you give us a shout in the comments box just to see who is there. Cool. I was going to say, we haven't seen you for ages. How you doing, Simon? Yeah, good to have you back, mate. You've picked a doozy to come back to, I'll tell you. Hopefully you've done a bit of a recap from the previous videos, because this one might be a bit heavy. So we'll see how you go. Morning, Neil. Morning. Good to see you, mate. And you've got a few others in the group as well. Cool. We've covered quite a bit of the. Oh, it's another face I haven't seen for a while either. Hi, Carol. Good to see you. And our regular Al. How you doing, mate? Just wondered if you got Simon with you in there this morning, or if that was a one-off. And we've got Julie as well. Cool. Right then, let's yeah. I know. Yeah, sorry, mate. It's whenever it says intrinsic muscles of something, then you always think, oh, okay. Right then, let's crack on. So we're going to do a little bit of a recap from what we did last week, and over the last few weeks, a little bit of terminology, kind of catch up, and then some of the muscles that we've covered already have got very similar names to the ones that we're going to have a look at today. And also, you might recognize some of the names of the muscles because of the wrist and the hand. So a lot of the intrinsic muscles in the hand are the same name as in the foot. So that often helps. So let's get going. Oh yeah, just a quick plug. If you want to come with me to the anatomy labs at either Keele University or King's College London, we still have some places left. So we've got there we go. So those are the steps up to KCL. That's King's College London. That's the old medical school there. And Keele is a kind of state-of-the-art facility. I'll see if I can get a picture of that for next week. But basically, we spend the day looking at cadavers. So you get to glove up, get your masks on, get your aprons on, and have a look at all of the bodies that are there. Right, let's just get rid of those. Let's switch into this one. Get rid of that. There we go. Hopefully everyone can still hear me. Yep, cool. So this is a bit of a recap of everything that we've done so far. So we've got a is that your daughter, Tab? Al. Oh, that's cool. That's really good. Get him in, young mate. Get if it is Tabitha, or if it's Tabitha from the diploma. I don't know. I think cool. Your daughter, cool. Oh, morning, Tabitha. I hope we don't bore you too much. This is going to be looking at feet. Right then. So let's grab that. Here we go. Right then. Yeah. So this is a really good screen to kind of just pause and then revise from. So we've had a look at a lot of the different compartments of the foot and the ankle. Mainly the compartments around the leg that then go into the foot and ankle, and they were divided into the anterior portion, which is the one at the front. Then we had a lateral. Then we had a deep posterior, so just behind the tibia and fibula, and then a superficial posterior, the most superficial muscles, your gastroc muscle and your soleus muscle. So if we have a look, this is a summary of what they do. So we have contributions from in plantar flexion, so pointing the toes down. We've got contributions from quite a few of the compartments of the leg. So the gastroc soleus is your superficial posterior. Then you've got flexor digitorum longus, flexor hallucis, tibialis posterior. That's your deep posterior compartment. and then the fibularis muscles, or your perineal muscles, is the lateral compartment. So we've got 3 compartments in the leg that all contribute to pointing your toes. So if you think about the reasons for that, is because of the power we need when you're going through that motion. So if you need to jump or run, there's obviously a lot of muscular activity. These are quite, the muscle belly is within the leg area, so around the shin, and then the tendons then run down into the foot. And because of the little tunnels that they go through, so they're retinacular that we talked about, they have quite a good leverage. So it's like a pulley system. So, if you're lifting something really heavy and then you have a wheel and then lift it, it gets a lot easier to move. And it's exactly the same principles with the leverage that the retinacular contribute to. So you're able to produce a lot of force with seemingly quite small muscles. You'd be able to, you can jump really high, just keeping your legs straight, just because of the power from these muscles. Then you've got your everters. So this is where, if you think about the sole of the foot turning outwards, so that's eversion. The contribution from those, from the lateral compartment, and also your extensor digitorum longus, which is from the anterior compartment. It's not really a muscle that requires a lot of force, or a lot of movement that requires a lot of force, so you don't have as much contribution in that area. With dorsiflexion, so bringing the foot back upwards, so toes towards your shin, this is all anterior compartment. Okay, so all of the red here, and then your inverters, a little bit of anterior, and then all of those are your deep posterior. Okay, so you can see where there's contributions to some, predominantly from certain compartments, but a lot of it is shared. Okay, so that's really good as well, because if we get injured to a particular nerve or a particular compartment, then there are other muscles that can take over the role. They won't be as effective, but you could still be able to move. So it's quite a useful design. This one's a bit of a problem because dorsiflexion, bringing the toes up towards the shin. If there is an injury to a nerve, and we'll talk about that when we go to the nerves, then you lose the ability to dorsiflex, and you have what's called a drop foot. So the foot can't lift up, and there is no other contribution from any other compartment. So this is why injury to that particular nerve is a problem, and you often get people wearing boots or shoes that keep the foot in a dorsiflexed position so they don't trip up. Okay, so that's just something to have a look at when you're kind of researching this kind of stuff. But that's the reason why, is because all of the dorsiflexors come from that particular compartment. Cool. Okay, so these are all the muscles, like I said, that start in the leg and then run through the retinacular around the ankle and then into the toes, or connect into the metatarsals or the tarsals. And we're now going to have a look at the muscles that are just in the foot. Okay, so they don't connect to anything else. Morning, Becky. Morning. Good to see you. So that's the plan. Sorry, it was me. Apologies, it was on mute. Thanks, Simon. So yeah, this is a video. I'll start again. This is a video from YouTube, just picked up off of YouTube, and it's something called the windlass mechanism. So it's WINDLASS, and we talked about it a little bit when we looked at the plantar fascia, so the fascia that's on the bottom of the foot. And then when you bring the big toe up, so big toe goes into extension, it tightens that fascia. So we're going to have a look at that in this video, and what happens when you walk and you run, because the plantar fascia, the tissue that's on the bottom of the foot, is really important to form a solid base for you to push off from. Okay, so we talked about a couple of foot positions, one called pronation, so where the foot is flattened, and that is really good for absorbing shock. Okay, so when you step, you usually heel strike, and then as the foot comes down, the foot goes into pronation, so it flattens against the floor to absorb forces. And then what happens is you then resupinate the foot, because as you come up onto the big toe, and then that turns the foot solid. Okay, so when the foot is in supination, so you're kind of rolling onto the outside edge of your foot is really, really you create an arch, and the foot is really solid, and then you can push off on that. That is really the problem with feet. So rather than having a pronated foot being a problem, because pronation is not a problem, it has to happen when you walk and when you run. It's whether you can resupinate. That's the real issue. Because if you are pushing off on a very flat foot that's a bit floppy, then you don't get the rigidity in the foot to lever off from. So the muscles and the joints in the foot have to take a lot of the load that should be taken from the just natural leverage of that movement. So yeah, well, be careful with using pronation as a reason for people's plantar fasciitis and all things like that, because the link just isn't there. So if someone has a flat foot, they're just as likely to get plantar fasciitis with a really high arch than they are with a really low arch. So the position of their foot when they're stood just doesn't really have any bearing. When we have a look at the intrinsic muscles of the foot in a second, so all the small little muscles, you'll see that there are a lot of muscles that attach onto the calcaneus. Okay, so that's around this area here, and that is where the plantar fascia attaches as well. And this, I think, is probably one of the reasons why strengthening the foot is really, really useful for people who come in with plantar fasciitis, because I think it's often misdiagnosed. Okay, so it's well worth researching that, basically. So one of the best things you can do, because we always hear people rubbing balls on the bottom of the foot, rubbing an ice bottle on the bottom, which is all good for pain relief, but it doesn't take the problem away. And quite often it's the strength training and strengthening these intrinsic muscles that really makes a difference to that heel pain. Okay, so just something to think about there. So we've got 3 dots on here just so we can see what's happening with the arch of the foot as this person moves. So let's just play the video through. So you've got dot on the calcaneus, one around the mid-tarsals, and then one around that first MTP, which is your metatarsal phalangeal joint of the big toe. So as you bend the big toe, so go forward, then you create this arch in your foot, and that lifting of the big toe brings the heel closer to the forefoot. And if we just have a look at this in a second, so there you'll be a little bit elongated, and then as you come up onto the big toe, it will then reduce the size. So here we go. So you've got 4.8 of whatever measurement that is, and then it goes down to 4.5. So you can see that the foot shortens. There was a little bit on the video I didn't agree with, but there we go. So we get rid of that. So as the foot shortens, it lifts the arch and supinates the foot, and that all comes from that big toe. So this is that's the windlass mechanism, and there is a test for that as well. So you can lift someone's big toe and see if it creates the arch in their foot. So just wanted to have a chat about that, because that kind of tidies that section up. And then here we go. Okay, so we're going to go really deep first of all. So we're going to have a look at some of the deep muscles. and then we're going to come out and we'll have a look at the inside of the foot, so towards the big toe, and then the outside of the foot towards the little toe. Okay, so that's where we're going to go. So in fact, this is a perfect place to start. So we're going to start with some muscles in the foot. These are in between the metatarsals, and they're called lumbricals. And I just did a little bit of a search about what a lumbrical was, and it's basically an earthworm. Okay, so they look like, and to be fair, they do look like little earthworms. So here we go. So these are the lumbrical muscles. If I just pause that there. So this is the tendon of the flexor digitorum longus, which we've already seen. Okay, so we saw that, I think, a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week. So the flexor digitorum flexes the digits, so toes 2 to 5. Okay, so so your second toe all the way through to your little toe, and you can see that here. So it splits off into these tendons here, all the way down there, and the lumbrical muscles are underneath that. So these are the lumbricals just here. So there's your big toe. That's your first MTP, and you can see this one's got a bit of a bunion form in there. And then we've got these muscles in between the metatarsals. So if you're doing some kind of like manual therapy techniques in between someone's toes, then these are the kind of this is the kind of tissue that you'll be very, very close to. So let's just play that a sec. Okay, and then there's another muscle that connects to it called flexor. I don't know how you pronounce it. I always call it quadratus plantae. So we'll call it that. Accessorius, maybe. Okay. So there's your calcaneus, just there. Okay. So again, if we think about plantar fasciitis, quite often you get it on that medial aspect of the calcaneus, but this muscle attaches in there as well. Okay, and it attaches onto the lateral aspect, and it joins up with the deep tendon of your flexor digitorum. There we go. Okay, so the quadratus inserts into the flexor digitorum longus tendon. So see it coming from there, and then all the way down. Then it joins into that flexor digitorum, and then they both then act on the toes. Yeah, there are so many muscles in the foot doing these really, really small jobs. It's crazy. And then so that and then they flex the toes. Oh, let me just get rid of that a second, just so you can see that properly. So this is really good on these videos. They pull the tendon so you can see what happens. So there you go. So it flexes the toes, and the flexor digitorum goes all the way to the last phalanx. Okay, so again, going back a few videos, you've got a proximal phalange, a middle phalange, and a distal phalange, and the flexor digitorum longus will go all the way to the distal one. So that's the one that's furthest away. Okay, and that's why it acts on the toes, and it will flex those toes. Okay, cool. That wasn't the one I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be this one. Here we go. Okay, yeah. So these are your interosseous muscles. So you've got your lumbricals, and there's also interosseous muscles. And if you have a look at the top there, interosseous means in between your bones. Okay, so if we have a look at this one. So let me just show you what's what. So there's your first MTP again. So this is your big toe, little toe obviously over here. You can just about make out that's the metatarsal there of that second toe. So just there. And then we've got these muscles in between the toes. So you've got your lumbrical muscles, which are those little wormy ones, and you've got these interosseous muscles as well, just in there. And there are two muscles for toes 2, 3, and 4, and then the last toe has only got one. Okay, so it's only on these metatarsals. So it attaches on the side of the metatarsals there, and then onto the base of the proximal phalanx. So if I just go back a second, so just to give you an orientation of all the bones and everything again. So big toe here. So this is your first metatarsal. second, third, fourth, and then fifth. And you see that bit there, the base of the fifth has got that little lump on, and that's where your fibularis brevis attaches. So we had a look at that a little while ago. And then you've got these tarsal bones just here, and then these are the phalanges that I was just talking about. So this is your proximal phalanx, this is your middle, and then that's your distal. Okay, so toes 2 through to 5 I've got 3 of these phalange bones, and toe 1, so your big toe, has only got 2. So that's got a proximal and a distal. This has got proximal, middle, distal. Okay, and your interosseous muscles attach on the metatarsals and then down into the base of that proximal, so the one that's closest to you, phalange just there. Okay, so if you think about where it goes from and to, and if it contracts, it will only act on that joint, and that is it, because it doesn't cross any other joint. Okay, so it goes from there to there. So if it contracts, it's going to help flex your toes, but not these joints here. Okay, so it won't go all the way to the ends of the toes to flex them, like the flexor digitorum. It's just that first MTP joint, or the MTP joints. Okay, so let's just have a look at that. So inside there, here we go, and then when they pull, you'll get flexion of the toe, but only from this joint here. Okay, it won't act on the ends of the toes. All right, let's just show that again. So when they pull, just there, see it moves the toe, okay, from that MTP joint. So that's what your interosseous muscles do. So we've got another muscle that helps to flex your toes or point your toes down. And again, if you think about walking, running, we've got to be able to push off on those toes. So they've got to be really strong and have a lot of muscles that act on them. So that's 2. Okay, let's have a look at this next one. So this is we've looked at flexor hallucis longus, okay, and we've looked at flexor digitorum longus. We're now going to have a look at the short muscles. So the longest muscles are long, and anything with brevis in the name means short. So let's have a look at that one. Here we go. Oh, this is the extensors. Sorry, let's go to. Sorry, let's go to the flexors. Here we go. We'll keep it on the sole of the foot, so we keep on the same bits for now. So there's your big toe joint again. That's your calcaneus just there. There's your little toe. Okay, so just to give you a bit of an orientation, so you can see some of the interosseous and lumbrical muscles that are in that picture there. Let's just add some stuff on. Okay, so this is the first bit to add on. So we've got flexor hallucis longus, which is a flexor of your big toe. So your hallucis muscles only act on your big toe. All right. So this is flexor hallucis brevis. So this is a short muscle that flexes your big toe. All right. So see it there and there. There are 2 heads. So we've got a medial head and we've got a lateral head. So the lateral.
Playing Catch You Loose. My Brother by Minority from Spotify.
Uh-oh. I think Siri's listened to me and might put some music on. Bear with me a sec. Oh, God knows what Siri thought I said then. Just my usual Monday morning listen and some kind of death metal. Right then, so flexor hallucis brevis, so short flexor muscles of the big toe. I've unplugged it, so that's not going to happen again. So yeah, you've got medial and lateral, and then we've got another muscle here that's adductor hallucis. Okay. So adductor hallucis, guess what that does? That's going to adduct your big toe, so it's going to bring it inwards. And then we've also got this one, which is abductor hallucis. So we're going to have a look at those in a bit more detail. So flexor hallucis with two heads, and this is where they attach. So you've got the cuboid and then you've got the cuneiform bone just there. So those are your tarsals, and then it goes all the way down. You've got 2 tendons of insertion, and I'm just gonna pause that there. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's please play flexor hallucis brevis. Okay, so we've got in the base of the toe, of the big toe. The big toe is really important. So we talked about that windlass mechanism before, and you've got these 2 little bones here, and these are called sesamoid bones. And the other place you've got a sesamoid bone is in your knee, and it's your patella. Okay, so your kneecap is a sesamoid bone as well. And the reason why we have the kneecap, the patella, is so that the quadriceps have something to attach into, and then it creates a lever for you to extend the knee. And it's exactly the same in the toe, but we've got 2 sesamoid bones. And you can get something called sesamoiditis around the big toe area, so an inflammation of the sesamoid, and you can also fracture these bones as well, like you can fracture any bones. But your flexor hallucis brevis attaches into these sesamoid bones and also onto the bottom of your proximal phalange as well, of the big toe. So these are really, really important muscles for that windlass mechanism to occur. Okay, because you need to be able to push that big toe down, and then the sesamoid bones helps to create that fulcrum so that small little muscle can create a lot of force. Okay, so this is an important muscle in gait. So there's your proximal phalanx and your sesamoid bones. That's where it attaches to. And then remember, it came up from your cuboid up here in your cuneiform bones. So this is your flexor hallucis longus. So we've had a look at this one already. And the flexor hallucis goes in between the 2 heads of the flexor hallucis brevis. Right? Let me just pause that there a sec, because that went a bit quick. Here we go. I'll just show you that again. Too many words if you do it too quick. Here we go. And just layer that on. There we go. I'll pause that there. Cool. So we've got flexor hallucis brevis, 1 head here. So that's the one that will go to the cuboid. Flexor hallucis brevis, another head here. And that's the one that goes to that cuneiform. And then this is your flexor hallucis longus, which is more superficial. And then it goes through in between the 2. Okay. So you can see these really, really big, powerful, well, this flexor hallucis muscle is huge up in the shin, up in the leg, and then these 2 smaller, really powerful ones as well, all acting on that big toe. Right, so we've got quite a lot of muscle activation around there. So there's your flexor hallucis, and then the next one along is this one, and this is your adductor hallucis. So if you think about what that would do and where it attaches, so if we have a look, so we've got a head here, which is an oblique head, and that comes onto the inside part of your big toe. And then we've got this one here, which goes across, which is a transverse head. So if you think about those 2 contracting and what will happen to the big toe when they do. So the big toe will then be able to deviate, okay? And you can basically independently, although it's really hard to do, you can abduct and adduct your big toe, okay? And that's what these muscles will do. So again, we've got some other muscles acting on that big toe as well. So you can see how important it is, that flexion. So there's your transverse head, there's your oblique head. So there's the transverse one just there. And you'll see where they attach. So we've got the bases of the metatarsals, and then the transverse ligament just there of the MTP joint. And then it will go onto the big toe. So the oblique and the transverse merge onto exactly the same attachment of that flexor hallucis brevis. Just go back a bit. So oblique heads up into the metatarsals, transverse head on that transverse ligament. And then once they take these away, I'll just pause that. There we go. Sorry, I spelt lateral wrong there. So that should be 1L rather than 2. So the oblique and transverse merge into the lateral flexor hallucis brevis. Okay, and that's the sesamoid bone just there, and then the proximal phalange. So we've got another set of muscles with two heads that act on that big toe. All right. So again, can't kind of stress the importance of enough of the movement of that big toe. And then the last one in these series of 3 is your abductor hallucis. So this comes all the way back up to here. It's the most medial of your muscles of your arch. And look where it attaches. Okay, so I think this one is often misdiagnosed as well as plantar fasciopathy. So it attaches onto your medial calcaneus, okay, just on the inside there, and it will run all the way down and merge into the other head of your flexor hallucis brevis. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So medial calcaneus just there, and then it comes all the way down. So on the inside of your big toe, merges with your flexor hallucis brevis onto the other sesamoid bone. So you've got the adductor on one side merging into the flexor hallucis brevis of that lateral part, and then you've got the abductor merging into the medial part, and then they all act on the big toe, and they all cross the joint. They all attach into the sesamoid bones as well. So there's a lot of stuff going on with that big toe. So if you've got people who haven't got any kind of windlass mechanism, these muscles are going to be really, really tired. And you could, quite a simple thing to do is just see how many calf raises people can do. And quite often they fatigue really, really quickly because their foot muscles are just tired, basically. So if we can build up the capacity in their foot, then it can help with some of this plantar fascia problem. I've dealt with a load of people with plantar fasciopathy and been following the guidance of strengthening the foot, and that is the only thing that they've been missing from their rehab from previous. So they've been to see previous people, they've had their foot rubbed, they've done loads of calf stretches, they've been doing loads of like getting a towel around the end of their toe and stretching their plantar fascia. But really, you need to strengthen the intrinsic muscles of the foot. So we do loads and loads of toe work and making sure that that big toe can really extend. And that's made a massive difference with people. So hopefully that will be helpful for you guys. Looks like it's helpful for Becky. That's good. So this is what they all do all together will flex your big toe. So all of those muscles plus the flexor hallucis longus, which goes down into there as well, coming from the leg, all of those will flex the big toe. So we've got a lot of muscle activation around there. Cool. It's probably the most in detail one. Right, let's have a look at the next one. So yeah, let's go for this one. So we've had a look at the flexors, and yeah, let's keep it on the sole of the foot, and we're going to have a look at the little toe. Okay, and if you remember from the hand and the wrist, there was the old mini-me, okay, because of the little finger acted the digiti mini-me, and we've got the same in the foot with the little toe. So let's have a look at that. Here we go. Just pause that there. So we've got move me. Okay, so we've got flexor, so it flexes, so it points the toe down. Digiti, so it's one of the digits. Minimi, so it's the smallest digit. Brevis, which means short. Okay, so it flexes the little digit and it's short, and that's this one just here. Okay, so flexor, digiti, minimi, brevis. So the little toe has got its own muscle to flex it. Okay. Let's just play that. And then you've got another muscle overlying that, which is this one. So we've got abductor, so it abducts the little toe, And I know some people who've got really good interdependent movement of their little and their big toe. They can wiggle their big toe side to side and move their little toe as well. I find it impossible. Mind you, I've never really tried training it, so it'd be interesting to see if I could. But again, being able to have that control where you can move the foot and splay the toes, scrunch the toes up. Really good exercises for the intrinsic muscles of the foot. So it abducts the little digit, this one, and you can see that because of where it goes from and then where it attaches to on the outside of the little toe. As it shortens, it's going to be able to abduct the foot, so it will splay the feet. Let's just play that. And these are your attachment points. Okay, so here's another one. Look at where this attaches on the calcaneus. All around that area where the plantar fascia does. Okay, so again, another muscle, the abductor digiti minimi, that attaches onto the calcaneus, around that calcaneal ridge, and then down onto the little toe. So again, if these muscles get fatigued, then it can cause like a tendinopathy, enthesopathy kind of problem. I mentioned enthesis last week. So an enthesis or emphasis is where the tendon merges into the bone. And if you have problems with the muscles, then that can transfer into the tendon. And you've probably heard of tendinopathies. They're usually kind of mid portion tendinopathies. But if it's where the tendon merges into the bone, we call that an enthesopathy. Okay, so or enthesitis. So it depends on what stage it's at. Apologies for the long words. We did spell it out last week, so something to have a look at if you want to look into that a bit further. And that's where it attaches there. So the base of the proximal phalanx. So you can see if it contracts, it's going to abduct that little toe. Cool. We are nearly there. Last one. So now all of those muscles are on the sole of the foot. Yeah, so you can see how many intrinsic muscles we've got on the sole of the foot. It's exactly the same as the hand. Yeah, so we had the lumbricals in the hand, we had the interosseous muscles in the hand. We've had loads of muscles all around the thumb, and in the foot we've got loads of muscles all around that big toe. Yeah, so the thumb and the big toe are really important to us. We've got a lot of muscles that contribute to the movements in those areas. So let's have a look at this last one. Hopefully, let's get rid of that. Here we go. So this is the flexor digitorum brevis should be. Let's have a look. Let's see if we see it. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So flexor digitorum brevis. So FHB. We had to look at the longest before. So there is another one that attaches onto the calcaneus, and then it divides into 4 tendons. So exactly like the flexor digitorum longus, it's exactly the same, although this is deeper. And then you can see where it attaches here. And you can also see the relationship. If I just pause that there a second, just move that out of the way so it doesn't confuse things. There we go. Okay, so this is deep, these ones here. So that's your flexor hallucis brevis tendon, flexor digitorum brevis tendon, apologies. So this one flexes your digits, and then this is the flexor digitorum longus tendon on the top. Okay, so again, very similar to the hand. So the brevis is deep, the longus is more superficial, but then they kind of overlap each other in a second. You'll see this. So remove some of that. There we go. Okay, so the brevis tendon, so the deeper tendon, will split into 2, and then the longest tendon runs through the middle of it and travels all the way to the end of the toe. Okay, so again, we've got different actions on the different muscles. There we go. So the brevis attaches onto that middle phalanx just there, whereas the longus will go all the way to the end of the toes. Okay, there is one more that I wanted to find. I think I accidentally showed it before. And let me just bear with me a second. Here we go. Okay, so this is the last bit, I promise. Where are we at? What time? Yeah, perfect. So this is the dorsum of the foot now. So this is the top part of the foot. So everything else we've done has been on the bottom. Now we're going to have a look at the dorsum, and there aren't many muscles, okay? Because if you think about the windlass mechanism, we need to be able to propel ourselves with the flexors, okay, and be able to push off. The only thing we need to do with the extensors is be able to bring the foot back up so that the foot clears the ground, so that we can place the foot down again and we don't trip up. So there aren't very many muscles on the top surface of the foot. They're all mainly acting on the undersurface. So these muscles here, so these long ones here, that's extensor digitorum longus, and we've had a look at those before. And there's extensor hallucis longus just there. So that hallucis will extend the big toe, and the digitorum will extend the digits. This one here is extensor digitorum brevis, so it's the short one. It doesn't have any kind of role on the ankle because it doesn't cross the ankle, it only acts on the toes. So let's have a look at that. There we go, just pause that there. Yeah, so we got extensor hallucis brevis just there, just running underneath there, and you can see it joining in with the longus there. And then extensor digitorum brevis is just underneath these tendons, and you can see the smaller tendons, the deeper ones, running in there, okay, and they're joining in with the longus. Just play that a little bit more. There we go. So there's brevis, digitorum brevis, and there you go. So that's where it attaches. So it attaches right on the front and on the side of your calcaneus. So there's your base of your fifth. So that's where your fibularis muscle will attach. And then there's the calcaneus just there, okay? So you can, that's your cuboid. So you can see it's on the outside of your ankle, and the extensor digitorum brevis. Make sure say it slowly so I get them right. Okay, extensor digitorum brevis is attaching there. So because it doesn't cross the ankle, it doesn't help with dorsiflexion of the ankle, but what it does do is extend the toes. Okay, so that's really important. So there it is there. And then there you go, you can see it attaching on the top, so the dorsum of the toes. So the tendons join in with the longus tendons and they all join together. Okay, and again, like I said before, there's no dorsiflexion because they don't cross the ankle, so they're not able to do that. And that's the same with the hallucis as well. The extensor hallucis brevis only acts on the toe. Okay, it doesn't do anything else. Whereas extensor hallucis longus, because it comes from the leg, so from that anterior compartment, that will dorsiflex the ankle because it crosses that joint. Okay, and that's I think probably one of the most important things to kind of get your head around when you're learning anatomy, because if you know where something goes from and where it goes to, and you think about the movement that it does, then you and the joints that it crosses, it can only affect the joints that it crosses. Yeah, so it can't do some of the other movements, and yeah, quite often that's a bit confusing. But also it's really good if you're trying to analyze what's going on with someone. So whether it's the short muscles that are a problem or the long muscles, you can test the toes, test dorsiflexion, and then you can try and rule in or rule out one or the other. Okay, cool. Right, I think just make sure I've got everything. Yeah, that is it. Cool. Told you, Simon. Told you this was a toughie. Yeah, that's the intrinsic muscles of the foot. So you can see where the main movements come from, because most of them are on the sole of the foot. And I was doing some dissection last week. Was it last week or the week before, and we were just revisiting some stuff on the foot. And the thing that you don't see in the videos, which you do see in the labs, is it depends on the dissection that's been done, is the thickness of the heel pad. Okay, so your calcaneus bone, underneath it, so what you step on, what you heel strike with, there is a good inch of real condensed keratinized hard tissue. Okay, basically squashed bits of fat and protein. Okay, and it's about that thick. Yeah, so it's quite a big depth before you get to that calcaneus bone. And yeah, the mid part of the foot and the forefoot doesn't obviously have that level of protection, but the heel bone does. It's, yeah, obviously it depends on the size of you, but yeah, the cadaver we were looking at, there was a good inch of tissue. Right, so Stevie has asked a question. So is it true to say that the longus does the heavy lifting supported by the brevis? Yeah, probably say so. Yeah, because it's got a better leverage. It's got a longer muscle belly, a real broad attachment as well. So it's, you know, really anchored in, and it's got that leverage from the retinacular. So yeah, it will be predominantly. But again, it depends on what you're trying to do. So if you're doing jumping, running, that kind of thing, where you have to move the ankle, then yes, definitely. If it's more kind of intrinsic footwork, then yes, there will still be a role of the longus, but the brevis will probably do a bit, contribute a bit more. So yeah, I guess it depends on the activity. So Neil has just said won't be able to make next week's live sessions, but we'll be. Oh, cool! We'll be at Therapy Expo. Hopefully, meet up with you and others from the group there. Yeah, definitely. So I'm gonna be there. Yeah, I'm doing 4 sessions. I think I'm doing a bit with Rock Tape, so I'll be on the Rock Tape stand. I'm doing a bit for Sports Therapy Association as well, so I'll be with them. And Stevie, who was just on there, Stevie. He and I are having a chat online tomorrow night with Matt Phillips from the Sports Therapy Association. So if you've not heard about those guys before, been involved with them for about 10 years or nearly 10 years. And they do a brilliant podcast every Tuesday. And it's about to get better because Stevie's on it. So he and I are going to have a chat about the Therapy Expo. So if you've never been before, then we'll be talking about that. I don't think Stevie's been before. I've been to pretty much every single one. So yeah, I think I only missed the first one, and then I was at all the rest. So yeah, so it's going to be should be a good chat. And then Becky has asked when's the next Kiel workshop. So the next one in Kiel is the week after this one. So it is the 2nd of April. Okay, which is a Saturday. So Saturday, the 2nd of April, 2022, and we'll be at Kiel University for that one. Cool. I think that's it. If anybody's got any questions, give us a shout. We're on to the nerves and the blood supply next. Okay, so that's what we're going to do next week, and I'll see you then. Cheers, guys.